Hello, Business 110. So this is my Chapter 12 assignment. So the 5 products that I came up with for the idea generation part was, the first one was, this is going to sound weird, but long fingernail clippers. So a big problem that a lot of older people have actually is that they can't bend down to clip their nails, so their feet health declines rapidly because they can't take care of them. So I figured if I could just think of a long pair of fingernails that they could sit up here and clip at the same time, that would be something. The next one is a fuel line for weed eaters that doesn't rot from the ethanol. So for those of you who might not know, one of the biggest problems that people have with taking care of their weed eaters is the fuel that you get from the gas station, unless you buy non-ethanol fuel, has ethanol, which is alcohol. And if you, let's say you leave your weed eater in your garage all winter with fuel in it, the ethanol in the fuel will actually eat through the fuel line. And that's I worked at a lawnmower and weed eater repair place for a while, and that was the number one thing that we saw was people who just left their weed eaters alone for 6 months and then it won't start because the fuel line has been eaten away. The next one was and this is asking a lot, but a golf club that hits straight every single time. So I'm a golfer, and if they could come up with a golf club where it was minimal effort and I just straight down the fairway every time, that would definitely be a product that I would pay large sums of money for. The next one I thought would just be kind of cool, a subconscious language learning tool. So what I kind of had in my mind was maybe a CD that you play while you're asleep. You do that for 6 months and then you know a language. Now that's definitely asking a lot, and I'll talk about why I got rid of that one in just a second. But the last one that actually ended up being the idea that I chose was, so right now I work at a doggy daycare, and I've worked with animals for a while now. But for those of you who might not know, when dogs have either dry paw pads, or especially younger dogs, to make sure that their paw pads don't rip, they have what's called paw wax. And just picture chapstick for dogs' paws. It's pretty much the same thing. It keeps it from cracking, keeps them nice and smooth, the whole nine. So my idea was, one of the biggest problems that we have with putting paw wax on dogs is that they just lick it off. But if I could put a bitterant in my paw wax to where they wouldn't want to lick it off, it would allow the medication to work a lot better. So that's the one that I chose. So I narrowed these down because a lot of them would be pretty extensive to invent slash produce. For example, the fuel line, I'd have to come up with like a whole new chemical makeup most likely, or just find a rubber that's the same cheapness as fuel line, because right now fuel line is just dirt cheap, and if you take care of it, it works well. So I didn't think there would be a lot of open market for that one. As far as the subconscious language learning tool, I knocked that one out because I figured I'd have to do like neurological studies and make sure it works for everybody, and like it's a lot to go into. The fingernail clippers, I thought that would be a really, really good idea, and I think a lot of people would buy it, but it was just kind of a niche market, and I wanted to focus more on the paw wax since I'm a little bit more knowledgeable about that subject. So going down to the analysis, okay, so what I did for this was I looked at the container that I would be selling is about a 1.5 ounce container, and imagine something about the size of this, and I'll bring this back out for my product like example where I drew one out. But imagine something about this size. So what I did was I looked at the cost of each ingredient that would go into my paw wax, and then tried to narrow it down for like how much each ingredient would cost per container, so that I could look at my cost per container versus what I'm going to sell it as. So just to list through the ingredients, and then I'll go over the prices. Olive oil, shea butter, beeswax, vitamin E cream, lavender essential oil, the bitterant, and yeah, that's it. So the olive oil is going to cost about 10 cents per container. And I'm just going to read these off since these are numbers that are just going to sound like a lot of jimble jamble. But so olive oil, 10 cents, shea butter, 8 cents, beeswax, only 5 cents. I was really surprised. Beeswax is actually not as expensive as you might think. Vitamin E cream, 25 cents. The lavender oil, 31 cents. That was one of the more expensive, especially if you want to get high quality oil. The lavender oil I just put in there. Lavender is actually a calming agent for dogs. At my work, if we have really anxious dogs, we have this lavender spray we put on towels that we'll put in their cabins, and it will actually calm them down a lot. So a lavender essential oil, just to help out. If we're going as far as putting bitterant in it, I want to make sure it's a good product. And then the bitterant was the most expensive at 40 cents, because you have to get this like green apple bitter liquid that I would just mix in with the paw wax. And then for packaging, it was a little hard to estimate, but I estimated about $3 a tin if I got them mass produced. I would want a metal tin that was airtight when you sealed it, but was still metal and probably and could be kept for a while. So, cost of testing, there really is not going to be much cost of testing besides the product itself. So dog products, especially like dog food and this paw wax, for example, does not have to be FDA approved. So I wouldn't have to go through that process at all. How I would test it, first I would put it on my own dog and see if she licked it off. All the ingredients in there are, dog and human quality, so I know it's not going to hurt them in any way. You'd pretty much just want to make sure that it actually works and that they don't just lick it off anyway. So I would try it with my dog and then branch out to family and friends, maybe even try it at my work, and then I would look into going to local vet offices and small pet stores. So advertising costs, I'll go into more on my advertising plan, but just for a simple quick one, about $2,700 for a magazine ad, plus free product for social media accounts to advertise on there. If you don't know, on Instagram and other social media accounts, there's a lot of huge dog accounts where it's either a person's dog that's famous or they post nothing but dog pictures, and they'll actually advertise dog-related products on their accounts, and it gets a ton of people to see it and all of that. But I'll go more into that for the commercialization part in just a second. So advertising costs are pretty low. The product cost, what I would sell it for, would be $12 for a 1.5 ounce tin. So comparing that to others, whenever I looked up paw wax for the 1.5 ounce tin, it was anywhere from $10 to $15 depending. So I think 12 is just right there in the middle. And then since we have a better product with the bitterant to where the dogs won't lick their paws, I think that that'll be perfect. So if you look at the $12 for the 1.5 ounce tin compared to our $4.19 product cost, that's a 65% profit, which is just outstanding. So for the development, draw a sketch. So imagine something about this size, probably a little bit smaller. I'm trying to see how much is in here. So this is 2.7 ounces. So imagine something a little bit smaller than this with kind of a label like this. So what I did was got a little picture of a dog there, bitter paw wax, and then I don't know if you guys can read this on the side, but it says same medication, no licking off. So that's kind of like the selling point for this product, is that it's the same quality of medication, but your dog's not going to lick it off. So let's see. So commercialization. I kind of have a whole spiel right here for this. So I would start by advertising on, like I said, those social media accounts, and those actually wouldn't cost me much to advertise on. More often than not, they just want free product. And then once, if you kind of see that a lot of people are getting interested through that account, you can offer the social media account holder like a coupon code for like 10% off or something, and maybe give them incentives like this amount of free products, or even possibly paying them if a lot of people are using their coupon code. So that's how I would start with my advertising, just because it's a very cheap way. All it's doing is costing me product, and especially if I'm mass producing it, like I would want to keep my costs low, then I'm going to have a ton of it laying around. And if I have to give, 50 social media account holders a free sample, then to get 1,000 purchases, then that's definitely what you would want to do. So I would start distribution in small local pet stores. And the reason I would start there is it's a lot easier to get a face-to-face meeting with the owner of a small local pet store than it would be for me to get a meeting with the product and marketing directors at, let's say, PetSmart, Petco, those kind of things. So it's going to be a lot easier to get my foot in the door on these small pet stores. Like, for example, downtown Mooresville, we have that store, Wagamuffins, and the owner's always there. So I could just go in and talk to her and kind of show her the benefits of my products, maybe give her some free samples to try. The next thing I would do is I would go to every single vet office in the state if I could. I would just take probably 2 weeks and every day do nothing but hit the pavement and go to every vet office that I could. Even send other people that are knowledgeable about my product to vet offices everywhere, because I feel like once I got into the veterinary field, I would have so much backing and like proof that it works that it would be a lot easier to get on, hopefully one day, websites like Chewy.com, which is one of the most profitable most profitable and largest online pet retail websites out there right now. They just sell a ton of stuff. So like getting on there would definitely be the goal. But to start out with small local pet stores, doggy daycares like I work at, vet offices, I think that would be a really easy way to get in my kind of foot in the door. So, like I said, the last move that I would want to do is get on like a Chewy.com website. And I would probably just wait until I had a lot of testimonials, proof of my numbers, cost evaluations, that kind of stuff, and just kind of contact them through the phone and try to work my way up the ladder to get a meeting with someone. I feel like they would have to, especially once I proved how profitable and desired my product was, that would definitely be what I would go for. As far as advertising, like I talked about a little bit earlier, social media accounts would be the main one just because all I have to give them is free product, at least at first. And then I also looked into what advertising in a pet magazine would cost. Now, pet magazines are not as widely purchased as, like, for example, a Time magazine. So the advertisement was a lot cheaper. So according to, and this is just a website that I found, it's Gabler.com. They describe themselves as resources for entrepreneurs. According to them, kind of a round number approximation for what it would cost to get an ad in a pet magazine is about $2,500, which if I can, spend $2,500 and then get my magazine in every vet office in the country or in a certain region, that's kind of what the goal would be. I would want to get my magazine in a vet office. That way, people who are waiting to go back, they're flipping through, looking at pictures of dogs, and they see an ad for a bitter paw wax that, hey, my dog needs paw wax, but he licks it off every time. So that would kind of be my selling point. So yeah, sorry about the long video. I just kind of went in depth with it because I knew a little bit about the subject and kind of took it and ran with it. So thanks, guys.